you very much. Live in Leicestershire at a pub for LBC News, Kate Baldock.
This is LBC News.
Now, ministers also confirming, as you know, that it is okay to go abroad on holiday, as in it's not illegal. But you've got to go to, well, you should be going to a green list country. Portugal, effectively, is only the real main one where people are considering. And we've been hearing from Sean Doyle, who's the chief executive of British Airways, one of the carriers taking people there.
We're flying to a number of destinations today, so we're running at about 79 flights. If I compare that to the same day 2 years ago, we would have been over 800 flights. But we still have a way to go before we see a recovery to the extent of the operation that we're used to here in a typical May.
Well, throughout the afternoon, into the evening, we will be hearing from LBC Charlotte Lynch, who's decided to hop on a flight for us to Portugal from Birmingham. We know she's at Faro Airport. We spoke to her in the last half hour, and it's a really, before you think she's having a holiday, she might get to the beach for about 5 minutes before turning back and flying back to the UK to see what the process is like. You will need to fill in a passenger locator form, and you need to have a negative COVID test either side. Let's speak to Ian Henderson, who's the founder of Halo, which is one of the government-approved COVID test labs producing those PCR tests. Good to have you on the programme. I know you're based at the Imperial College iHub in West London. The reality is, when people are thinking of holidays, these tests, though, can be costly and complicated.
It can be costly and it can be complicated. At Halo, we're trying to make it as affordable and easy as we possibly can for everybody. But it is complicated, and the science does take quite a lot of doing. So it's never going to be no cost.
So are we expecting, when there's more competition, more companies that are offering PCR tests, that the costs will come down? Is that the only way it will happen?
I think that competition is obviously good for customers and choice is good for customers. And I think the difficulty is that when people say a PCR test, that covers a lot of different things, because the test has to be delivered to people, it has to be collected from people, it can be done through swabs that, sticks up your nose, or it can be done by simply spitting into a tube. And then how do you get the results? Is it via an email or is it an app? So, it's not just about the price. It's actually about the value of what you're getting for that price.
And how reliable are PCR tests? We hear they're more reliable than lateral flow ones, but where do we actually stand?
Yeah, so, lateral, they all have their uses. Lateral flow gives a quick, I don't want to call it an approximation because it's better than that, but it's not a precise measure of the viral load. But it basically measures when there's lots of virus there. So if you've basically got it and you're about to be infectious, then it's quite good at picking that up. PCR picks up much, much lower viral loads. What that means is that you can have just got it, and way before you show any symptoms at all, but you can still be infectious. PCR will pick that up. So there's a much wider detection window with PCR. Plus, it is more accurate, and with saliva-based testing, it's also much easier to do.
I understand that if you were going to Portugal, you need to have a COVID negative test 72 hours before you depart. Isn't there a time gap in that window from when you get your result, perhaps if you got it on a Saturday and you're flying on a Monday, that in between that period you could have picked up COVID?
Theoretically, but it's a curve, so it actually takes quite a long time to get up to the infection level. PCR can pick it up very early, but obviously if you do get infected within that window, you're unlikely to be infecting other people within that time frame, which is why it's set up that way.
A lot of families will be worried about the cost that these kind of tests could add on to what's already an expensive trip for many families anyway with the kids. Is there any advice as to how they can bring that cost down, or should they just not go abroad this year?
Well, that's what some members of the government are suggesting. We think that it's very important for economies, for businesses like airlines and hotels, to get us all moving, and good for our own sort of well-being. We're obviously, we'd obviously want to enable that as much as we can. I think there are deals available. Some of the airlines are beginning to offer subsidised discounts on these tests. We've been working with one or two of the airlines to drive those prices down. Because, but again, I would go back to the point that it's not just about the top line price. It's also about what you get for it. So make sure that you've got a courier-based service. Make sure you've got a reliable app that delivers your results, and make sure that you're getting the right sort of test at an approved lab.
Ian Henderson, founder of Halo, one of the government-approved COVID test labs producing those PCR tests.
LBC News.
With more choice than... With more choice than... With more choice than... With more choice than...